Monday, Sky Bet League 2 playoff final between Salford and Notts County, previewed by Not the Top 20. He's George Ellick, I'm Ali Maxwell. This is sponsored by Sky Bet and the Sky Bet EFL Building Foundations Fund. We're going to go through it. We're going to discuss both teams. We're going to shake it all about. We're going to see what comes out at the end of it. A couple of betting picks to come. That means that this podcast is for over 18s only. Please make sure if you're thinking of placing a bet this weekend, or indeed any time, that you are gamble aware and head to gambleaware.org in order to do so. George.
Ali.
Salford Notts. Just the 1 point between them in the regular season. Salford 4th on 82. Notts 5th on 81. And if you zoom out and you look at these two teams, their histories, both long-term and recent, a promotion to Sky Bet League One would be hugely significant. But it's different flavours here, isn't it? And that's nice.
Yes, I mean, we should say, before I launch into this, that we went to Salford City a few months ago as guests of someone at the club and had a great time and met some people who had been working at the club predating the arrival of the class of 92. So I'm fully aware that Salford City existed before the current ownership group, or even the ownership group before that, because they were famously a new consortium took over in the summer, existed, and I get that. However, there is no getting away from the fact that you have, chalk and cheese when it comes to EFL heritage between these two teams, because Salford City had been a non-league club for their whole existence until the class of 92 guys took over back in 2014 and led them through non-league and into League Two. Compare that to Notts County, who are, like, in my mind, basically the team that I think of. If you say, like, who are like the EFL club, and
Don't keep going.
You look terrified.
No, this is funny. It's just perfect what you're about to say. They are the oldest professional football club in England.
I know. Who fell out of the EFL for a period of time and are now back in it. So you have like heritage and history versus the new age against each other. And that's probably going to be reflected when you look at the camera angle at Wembley. We'll probably have one half of Wembley decked out in black and white and a big following for League Two level. And Salford City probably won't bring that many fans in comparison. But either way, Salford have been knocking on the door for a while since they came up out of the National League. In most ways, this is more expected for Salford this season than it was for Notts County, who had a difficult season last season. And many scoffed at the appointment of Martin Patterson and the idea of this kind of, what would they call it? Technical board, where they talk about things, after games and such, basically taking away some of the autonomy that the people think managers have and handing it around, when actually it's probably adopted relatively regularly, but it's not spoken about at other clubs too. But for Salford, the takeover last summer, or the change of ownership or the change of shareholders, coincided with some decent investment in terms of the recruitment side of things. It's clearly one of the biggest. They have clearly one of the biggest budgets in the league. I'm pretty sure Carl Robinson's job this season was to take them out of League Two, and they have a chance to do it. So yeah, it's a kind of a clash of everything's really, and in some ways also styles. And pre-season, if you told me that Salford versus Notts County would be a clash of styles, I'd have thought Salford would be the slick passing team, and maybe with a new manager, Notts County might be the one to kind of relinquish that playing style that they had under Stuart Maynard and under Luke Williams. But no, it's Salford who are the direct team under.
No, yeah, exactly. Looking at some season analysis, seeing if we can eke out some insights there. Notts scored 13 goals more than Salford during the regular season. Weirdly, Salford with the higher non-penalty XG created, which they underperformed in terms of finishing. Notts had the league's second biggest overperformance in front of goal. Now, Salford take more shots, but lower quality. Notts fewer shots, but of higher quality. Defensively, the situation is flipped, basically. Salford conceded a goal fewer than Notts in the regular season, but Notts faced fewer shots on target by a fair margin, and had the better XG against number. Salford, the bigger threat from set pieces over the course of the season, 18 goals to Notts is 15, but almost 100 more set piece shots over the season, something that they focus a lot on for their attack generation, whereas Notts, very few of their shots come from set piece situations, the lowest proportion in the league, in fact. Stylistically, this is a much more of a style clash than, for example, the Bolton-Stockport game that we previewed in the League One episode. We are looking at the team that have logged the most build-up attacks in the league. That is to say, attacks or shots that came after settled possession, playing through the thirds, things of that nature. That's Notts County. against a team with the most direct attacks in the league. That is to say, shots that were created from, well, it's obvious, a direct attack. So Salford, much more often, and a high proportion of the time that they spend in possession is spent getting the ball forward quickly and trying to win the first ball, win the second ball, and then play from there, get shots off as quickly as possible and use their individual talent at the top of the pitch. Notts work it a lot more in their defensive and middle thirds. They have been a very possession-heavy team for quite a few seasons now, but they've adapted in the best possible way under Patterson, because rather than being a possession-based team that cannot go long with any effectiveness because of the players at the top of the pitch aren't suited to it, they've built a really well-rounded team where they can still be that possession-based team that's comfortable with the ball in defensive and middle thirds. You know, possession and having the ball is as much a defensive tactic as it is an attacking tactic, i.e. if you have the ball and you look after it and you're well-positioned when you lose it, there are fewer opportunities for the opposition to score and get shots at your goal. What they've added this season is that they can go long with effectiveness, and that's a really good balance. So although Notts are, still one of the more possession-heavy teams in the league, they're actually top of League Two for through balls this season. So what you'll see is what looks like slow possession initially to build into a position, and then possibly a run in behind from Jata or from one of the two number 10s, Luca or Ayopenda, where they will try and find them. In terms of a press, it's always hard to know because I often think pressing is just different at Wembley. It's different in playoff finals. Like heavy pressing teams throughout the season sometimes get to Wembley, and whether it's the perceived size of the pitch or the heat or the pressure, you know, it can be quite dangerous to be really gung-ho pressing-wise. But Salford have the lowest PPD in the league this season. By that one measure, they are basically the pressiest team in the league.
And it's going to be hot.
It's going to be hot.
29 degrees.
Hot.
Yeah.
Sunnies, please. Don't forget, sun cream and sunglasses. So I'm interested to know whether Salford will go after Notts and try and disrupt their back line and try and stop them playing passes at the back, or whether they will sit in their shape so as not to be exposed by Jata, Luca, Ayopenda at the top of the pitch. Notts, for their point of view, far from a gung-ho press. They don't press the very top of the pitch kind of aggressively, but they are quite good in that next stage, kind of still in the opposition half, but more towards the centre circle. They've proven very good at turning turnovers into shots and goals, as we saw in the first leg against Chesterfield. The one goal that decided that two-legged affair was them turning the ball over. Chesterfield, tackled by Ayopenda, ball across for Luca to finish. So Salford will have to be pretty precise with any passing at the back. Do you have any particular way that you think the game is going to play out tactically, how it's going to look?
I think it'll be Notts County with some spells of possession and Salford trying to kind of turn it more into chaos. I think Salford, I watched every second of the Salford Grimsby two-legged semi-final, and I was so impressed with the way that Salford defended kind of in their one-on-one duels, and that is going to make it difficult for some of Notts County's players to kind of flourish within it. Looking at the likes of Cerula or Jody Jones, I think they're going to struggle to get the kind of time on the ball which will enable them to flourish, because, as you say, Salford do snap into everything so quickly, and then when they're on the ball, they get it forward very, very quickly too. So, as with the League One game, I think the heat will play a part in that as to whether or not they're able to maintain that for 90 minutes. But yeah, I could see this being pretty low scoring again, and pretty tight, despite both teams having periods of the season where they were involved in pretty goal heavy games. With what's at stake here, and given the conditions, and given what we saw from both teams in the semi-finals too, it may not be one for the goal hungry.
Well, it's funny because I was at the Notts second leg while you were watching that Salford Grimsby game, and I was very impressed with Notts' defence more than anything else. They were absolutely excellent in the back line. The fact that they played 120 plus minutes against 180 plus minutes against Chesterfield and didn't concede a goal against a team with a lot of talent, I think was really, really impressive, and underlines the good job that Martin Patterson has done, taking what was a decent team with some flaws into a much more well-rounded team. A more serious overall football team, I would say, and better placed to do well in the playoffs, which obviously they didn't last season. So really interested to see how it goes. expected team lineups for me would be Matty Young, who's a young goalkeeper on loan from Sunderland, his second full season at Salford, and really interesting if you're interested in the goalkeeping pipeline of English football. Matty Young has got to be one of the most interesting names on that with the amount of games that he's played and acquitted himself so well, so consistently for 2 seasons now. He will certainly be in League One next season with or without Salford. Backline of Haji Minoga, who was excellent in both playoff semi-finals. He's a kind of defence-minded right back, I'd say, not someone that you want on the ball too much, if you're Salford, that is. Aluwo and Cooper, brilliant centre-backs for the level, and then Luke Garbett is a big player for them at left-back, and certainly in terms of their set-piece proficiency, Garbett's left foot is key to that. Osterfield and Butcher have established themselves as the double pivot for Salford in midfield, and then in the semi-finals they tweaked it because returning from injury at the right time were Callum Cisse and Kelly Namai. They're 2 young players, 23-year-old Cisse. I've lost track of where Namai's got to, but he's through the Salford City Academy, 22 years of age he is. And they both came straight into the team, Namai at left wing, Cisse as a kind of box-crashing number 10. And then Ryan Graydon moved from playing up top with Dan Udo out to a right wing role in the playoff games. And it seemed to work pretty well. Cisse scored in both legs and showed exactly why you want him in the team in doing so, with his athleticism, running off deep from midfield, getting in front of his central defensive opposite men and causing problems for the back line. And then Dan Udo is an excellent striker for this level at the top of the pitch. For Notts, it's a 3-4-2-1. So you've got Belshaw in goal, who's Notts born and bred. He's had a long career as a goalkeeper and is now back at his hometown club since January and has made a big difference to them, replacing Keller Roos, who was struggling in the first half of the season. The back line of Luca Ness, Rod McDonald and Jacob Badeau, really solid back line that I was impressed with in the semi-final. Nick Cerula, right wing back, left-footed but comfortable on the right side. Jody Jones, left wing back, and loves whipping in crosses from deep on that left side. Central midfield too of Ollie Norburn, who's very, very tidy and experienced. Scott Robertson, who's a really nice left-footed all-rounder, strong in the tackle, can play forward as well, a bit better than Norburn, who tends to just recycle backwards and sideways. And the number 10's a big here. Tom Yorpenda, on loan from Huddersfield, 21 years of age, has had an absolutely sensational loan and was tremendous in both legs against Chesterfield. And Jaden Luca, on loan from Luton, also a young player, who hasn't had a sensational loan because he's been injured for a lot of it, but when he has been available, has looked very, very dangerous. Both of those guys, young players, but athletically very impressive, and they've added a lot to those 2 number 10 roles behind the striker, Alassana Jatta. For me, the key battle is Luke Garbett, Salford left back, and Tom Yorpenda, who is the right-sided number 10 for Notts, because he covers so much ground, and I think that given that Garbett is basically Salford's playmaker, he has the most touches for them, plays the most passes for them. They get the ball as quickly as they can out to him, and that's where their attacks start, basically. I think Yorpenda will stay very, very close to Garbett and try and suffocate him and stop him being able to play long passes forward. And Yorpenda is such an incredible athlete for this level that I think he might do quite well at that job. And then if Garbett is caught up the pitch, Notts on the break, Yorpenda running into space in that right-hand channel is going to be a big problem for them. On the other side, you've got Luca, who I think will be less worried about Haji Minoga. I see Notts probably, in terms of their pressing triggers, making sure that the easy pass to Haji Minoga is on, and then from there they can be in a shape and kind of dare him to play forward with quality, and doesn't necessarily have that that ability to the same extent as Garbett. So interesting from a tactical level at that end of the pitch. At the other end, I think Salford may do what Chesterfield did in the second leg and target Luca Ness. I think of the 3 centre-backs, Ness, McDonald and Badeau, he would be considered the one to go at and to test out. He's young and he's probably not, well, he's definitely not as experienced. He's probably not as impressive physically. He stood up to it really well against Chesterfield. But even so, we know Salford like to play long passes. And when you are that team, you always highlight one of the defenders to put those long passes on top of and avoid the aerially dominant ones. So I think Udo versus Ness in terms of aerials is going to be quite a big part of the game as well. And we should mention Ryan Graydon, because we talked about him a lot since he joined Salford. He was the big money signing in League Two in January. He was the guy that Salford bought from Fleetwood, a decent fee and eye-watering reported wages. He was the one that they signed to kind of get them into the top 3. And he's been an interesting one because he's played instantly pretty much every minute for Salford under Carl Robinson, who clearly loves him. But for whatever reason in front of goal,
isn't scoring.
He's really struggled.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't be surprised it wouldn't be a surprise to see him be a match winner here for Salford.
He played off the Udo played through the middle, and he played out wide against Grimsby. In him and Udo, they've got two players who kind of epitomise what this Salford team are about, because Udo was unbelievably good in that second leg and like put in the kind of physical shift and really used his physicality in a way that I hadn't seen him do many times before. And in Graydon, you've got a player that even if he's not scoring, because he's so energetic and because he presses so aggressively, he's still a big issue for opposition. So, we said at the time when Udo was signed, he was perceived to be a good League One player, playing, and an important player for not a bad League One team. So the fact that the Salford were able to sign him was a big coup. And similarly with Graydon, in a January window, they just plucked the best striker from a mid-table team in their own league. It's proper, the spending power is there, and they're reaping the rewards of that. And they're a very good team.
Yeah. Callum Cisse deserves a mention as well. Scored in both playoff semi-finals off the back of an injury as well, and also having to handle the very sad death of his father. I think in between the first and second legs.
Before the first, I think. Before
the first leg, apologies. A very emotional celebration after his late winner against Grimsby. But as a player, really like him. I think him running off Norburn and Robertson into areas that they don't want to go, and using his athleticism and his kind of wiry speed, his long legs as well. Very similar in some ways to Tom Jorpenda of Notts. I think from a neutral's point of view, if you like young players, you like watching young players, both of those guys very, very interesting. Which leads me to predictions, betting selections. Where are you going?
Yeah, those who listen to League One, spoiler alert, it's a similar thing. I think it's going to be really tight. I don't think there's going to be much in it. I think it's going to be low scoring like many other playoff games are. So I'm going to go for Salford this time to win by a solitary goal. Just really impressed with them in the two legs against Grimsby. And again, would have them kind of marginal, would have them marginal favs, and they aren't that. It's kind of picking between the two. So the same price again, 130 for that.
Yeah, I lean towards Notts County to be promoted 4-5 with Sky Bet. Really, really impressed with how they approached both semi-final legs. It's definitely not a knock on Salford, but I think I quite like the tactical setup here. I think that Notts will be able to cope fairly well with what Salford throw at them, and I just think with Luca having made a difference to what they can do in attack, having not played much this season and therefore probably not being considered as much of a threat pre-playoffs. I think they might have it in them. 4-5, 1.8 with Sky Bet, Notts County to win promotion. And yeah, just to tie a bow in it, as George mentioned at the top, these are two teams whose ownership situation has transformed the club. It's well known in the case of Salford City with the class of 92. What's probably not spoken about much with them is that one of their great skills, as well as experience, knowledge of the area, their fame and cachet, being able to bring eyeballs to the club through the documentary, and no doubt helping in terms of how players look at it and their desire to join Salford City, and managers as well. But one thing they've done very, very well is they've managed to get other incredibly rich people to invest a lot of money in Salford. Initially Peter Lim, and then they succeeded where a lot of other clubs struggle, where when Peter Lim's ownership came to an end a year or two ago, they managed to find some more people with very deep pockets to kind of keep things rolling, and that's helped them get to where they have got to. For Notts County, this story is different, but it's still absolutely fascinating. I couldn't believe it when I was told the other night that Notts County, when they were in League One 10, 15 years ago, their average attendance was 5,300. Currently, it is 10,400 in League Two. That is, even if it is the oldest professional football club in England, a hell of a regeneration from a point where, for whatever reason, the club was just really in the doldrums, even when it was at a higher level. Of course, they then dropped all the way to the National League. The ownership of the Reeds brothers, who are very, very interesting guys, who own a data company called Football Radar, and have, through that, made money, bought a football club, a big, big club at National League level that was no doubt in the doldrums, that have applied, incredible discipline and yes, data-driven decision-making to a club in perhaps the most extreme way of any club outside of Brighton and Brentford in English football, and who have made incremental gains on the pitch, growth off the pitch, and have done so in a way that's been pretty quiet and pretty understated. Not a lot is talked about with them, and they don't give a huge amount away. But a really, you have to look at them as being custodians who have done an incredible job at regenerating this club, and I'm looking forward to watching these teams go head to head at Wembley on Monday. That's been your League Two playoff final preview. Let us know what you think the score will be in the comments. Cheers for listening, and go well.